This morning we have gone through first two verses of this four mindfulness. These 5 verses, which is actually a teaching which Guru Manjushri gave to Master Tsongkhapa into these 5 points. And that teaching, Master Seven Dalai Lama has put it into this verse form. So the essence, the meaning is that instruction of the 4 or 5 mindfulnesses which Guru Manjushri given to Master Tsongkhapa. The first is the mindfulness of Guru, and through the mindfulness of the Guru, through the practice of concentrative and analytical meditation, then one generates in one's mind a deep, very strong faith and devotion. The next mindfulness is a mindfulness of all Mother Sentient Being, and here again we apply concentrative analytical meditation. And the result, or then out of that, what we actually generate in our mind is the mind of deep compassion and loving kindness. The next is the mindfulness of the meditational deity. So if somebody is already engaged in the practice of deity yoga, meditation with certain emanation of Buddha as personal meditations deity, then how one should also regard in what way we should also practice mindfulness of that. Generally, when one practices the deity yoga, meditation of the deities, which are various emanations of the Buddhas, there are 2 ways of doing it. Visualizing, being mindful of the deity's presence in front or in oneself. What is directly explained here in these verses is the mindfulness of the deity in the context of self-generation. It is connected with Tantric meditations, which first of all requires the empowerment. Through the receiving of the proper abhisheka or initiation, in which the Guru introduces one to the particular meditational deity, and they receive all the initiation in connection with this deity, and after that then one is in a position to make self-generation. That means generating the deity in front, but also generating oneself in the form of the deity. Since this is a meditation of the generation state of the Tantra, which also requires very special attitude of the mind. Not only when one visualizes or transform oneself in the form of the deity, but in general, in Tantric meditation, even when we visualize a deity in front or in one's heart or wherever, one should always maintain that kind of the correct view. So what kind of view that one has to develop? It is, says here, in the divine mansion of great bliss, pleasant to feel, by the divine body which is your own body of pure aggregates and constituents. A deity with the 3 bodies inseparable is there. Not conceiving yourself to be ordinary, practice divine pride and vivid appearance, not letting your mind stray, place it within the profound and the manifest. Making your attention unforgetful, maintain it within the profound and the manifest. When it says here, mention like a palace or mansion of the great bliss, this is what one has to generate in one's mind through the experience of the union of bliss and emptiness. Whenever one visualizes one's body, oneself in the form of deity, it's not this our karmic old body itself suddenly become like deity. That is not the right procedure. In place of it, one has to create a completely a new form or a new body. This old aggregates is a karmic production. As well, that means our body, mind all together, and even together with it, the self, the person which is also oneself, which is based on such a composition, all must first dissolve into emptiness. That also should be a follow-up of the first mindfulness, the mindfulness of the Guru, that as one has practiced already. And here also one should be mindful of the Guru, and to which one makes a very deep request for the blessing, for such a transformation of ourselves. And that way raisin, light and nectar comes from the Guru, and that is absorbed in oneself. With the rays of light and nectar alone, or if necessary, even a duplicate of the Guru, a small one, absorbs in oneself. And that way one's own body, speech and mind and that of the Guru's body, speech and mind all merge into one. And through this merging, through this union with the Guru, then one experiences uncontaminated state of bliss, a blissful experience. And in that great bliss, then once the old self, old body, old mind, everything dissolves into light. All these material aspects dissolve into light. That light also slowly diminishes and then finally completely dissolve into total emptiness. In the mention of the great bliss, that means that new existence of oneself is born out of great bliss. Union, bliss and voidness, bliss and emptiness. Our old self, old body, mind all dissolve into emptiness. But this emptiness is not only emptiness in appearance only, but also emptiness with a real experience of the ultimate nature of ourselves. Therefore, one has to maintain that understanding, not only just visualizing that once the body suddenly becomes empty, like a space. Instead, it becomes like that, dissolved into emptiness. But what one really actually at this time understand or to be aware of is our ultimate empty nature. Although we think that here am I with such a concrete body, such a concrete mind, and there is then this self, something which is existing in the center of all these, something always from the beginning so independently existing. This is all our fantasy and our fabrication of our mind. So therefore it dissolves. Now there is not anything like that which exists in the concrete manner as body, mind, eye, all these things which we believe that it is like that, but in reality there is nothing like that. With this understanding, our physical body, mind, our own person all then dissolve into emptiness. That very state of mind which is in this experience of the bliss as well as experience of the emptiness itself then takes shape, takes a new form. That very emptiness, that very experience of bliss and voidness itself then takes a shape of form, as it says here, with aggregates, with the elements, that means with all aspects of our 5 aggregates. So therefore, if one is already initiated, then into that form of that particular deity, may it be Avalokiteshvara or Tara, for example, the shape of this new form, this new skanda, is in the form of the deity, with everything, with proper limbs and everything complete. So in such a form, we generate in this completely new form, which is of the nature of experience or union of the bliss and emptiness. That union, emptiness and bliss that have been experienced before, which has taken in shape of this new deity as Tara or as Avalokiteshvara. So with all every aspect of its form perfect, in that way we generate. If one has not yet been initiated, so therefore one is not entitled to visualize oneself in a form of a particular deity, then one still go through this transformation. Our old self, old body, old mind, all that karmic production, and into the emptiness of this inherent nature, and that it dissolved. And now it takes a new form, which is not made of the karmic production of flesh, bone, and such kind of thing, but it is a new form similar to our usual form, but of the nature of light, which is in essence what is material. It's still that experience of bliss and emptiness that one has experienced. It is not the karma that is the material, but is that union of bliss and voidness which one experiences takes a new shape, new form of oneself, of the nature of the light of wisdom. This is a new body. There's a body of light, of the nature of union of bliss and void is a new body. If you want to make some modification, you can do that. And if you don't like to visualize in the same old form, one can make it a little bit younger, you can do that also. Or a little bit more beautiful, you can make it also. If you prefer to make it older, that is also possible, because it is all mind creation. Actually, everything is mind creation. Usually our mind creates all the very boring things. So here one can also create in this new birth that one takes with such kind of essence, very important essence, important nature, in appearance, whatever is really suitable, just as we can visualize in the form of deity, even though we are not deity. So in the same way, one can also visualize in our own form, but of a better quality and also maybe better form. So therefore, one can make some modifications if one wishes to. In such kind of pure form of yourself, one can visualize the deity, not transform yourself into deity. Instead, one transformed into this really a pure being. And then in one's heart, one can visualize one's personal deity, the Avalokiteshvara or Manjushri or Tara, for example. Then in one's heart center, just as we are crowned with the Guru on our head, in our heart we find our meditational deity in the heart center. For the self-generation, that means oneself becoming the deity, having the deity's form. That requires abhishekas. But otherwise, if one has, as long as one has faith, one has devotion, then visualizing the Guru, visualizing any deities on your head, in your heart, that is absolutely possible. In the teachings of meditation, sometimes it's taught for developing single body concentration, we visualize our little Buddha's form either in front of ourselves or on one's palm. You are in the meditation pose in the palm. In the palm, one visualizes a tiny little Buddha, and then one's mind is focused and concentrated on such Buddha, and that way to develop the concentration. There are many possibilities. But now here is inside, either oneself in that form or inside one's outer body, in the heart center, for example. In that way, one should visualize one's deity or oneself into the form of the deity. This deity in one's heart or oneself as the deity, one should see is, as it says here, an inseparable union on three bodies, three aspects of the Buddha. That means Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. Buddha has these kind of three aspects. So one should see that form as a complete union, inseparable union of the three kayas. So what one has to overcome here is our ordinary grasping. So this, what one has visualized, oneself in the form of the deity or oneself like the container of the deity with the deity inside, but in whatever way, one should overcome that kind of impure view. Just thinking, this is myself, my same old body, or it's just a karmic production, or think, this is only just my imagination, just only my mind. These are interferences. In the Tantric meditation, one of the main obstacles is ordinary appearance and ordinary grasping. So that should be put aside. Instead, one should think, it is the very form of the Buddha. This is skillful method with the Tantra. In skillful method with Tantra, one already, before attaining the full enlightenment, we already aspire, and not only just aspire, we already imagine oneself, already have attained that state and have become already enlightened. This is a very skillful method. In other words, it's a kind of a skillful imitation of the Buddha. So therefore all that visualization, self-generation is what one is training, what one is familiarizing with. It's a kind of imitation of the deity, that even though we are not yet Buddha, but we think ourselves, familiarize our mind becoming Buddha, or already become a Buddha, and already possessing the body, speech and mind of the Buddha, already fulfilling the activity of Buddha. Like this we are familiarizing. Through that way, through this kind of the divine imitation, and then we familiarize with it, someday it becomes real. We always imitate the false example. We imitate always the samsaric being, samsaric form, samsaric activity, samsaric, everything samsaric. So having so well, always imitating that, copying that, and familiarize our mind with that, then we become deeply and ever deeper in the samsaric being. One slowly has to familiarize our mind with some other reality, and if possible with the reality of the Buddhas. So therefore it says here that one should put aside all that grasping of the ordinary. Instead, one should train in the so-called pride and clarity. Pride and clear appearance. It does not mean the delusion pride, to think, to have this superior complex about ourselves, this kind of superior feeling. That is a real deluded pride. That's good for nothing. So, but here divine pride is that kind of conviction that I have become enlightened. I am the Deity. And this kind of, it's called divine pride. So that is something that we should hold. And then also the appearance, clear appearance. Then that means that one, in your mind, we visualize as clearly as possible such forms of the Deity, with head, limbs and everything, with all what our being is composed of, those things we try to visualize, really living and clear and distinct. So therefore it says one should not let one's mind wander about, instead place it in the state of profoundness and clarity. That means this one's rising in the form of the Deity, or one rising in this new form with the Deity within, in whatever, one should always here also maintain that kind of the view of, in one hand, the profoundness, that it has such appearance, it has this kind of divine appearance, and such kind of appearance with all this conventional and divine as well as pure and conventional appearance, with a form, with a body, with its attributes. That's what one visualizes, one sees. But then at the same time, it is a manifestation of the same empty nature. It's not like before, not like now, that we always had deep in our mind this strong grasping to inherent existence, independent existence, true existence. That is always in all our conceptions, in all our view, in all our activity. Now, whatever one that appears to us, it seems all as a manifestation of that ignorance, that inherent existence, independent existence. That is the old story, finished. Now completely new view develops, a view which has experienced that emptiness directly, emptiness of your own independent identity, that oneself, one so-called I, is just relatively existing. There's nothing really inherently nowhere that we have experienced before, that this is completely dissolved into emptiness. And now, so in this new life, in this new form, one is aware of this empty nature, this total lack of any kind of independent essence, independent self, nature and anything like that. All what is there is that emptiness of all this kind of false projection, false reality. And what is this in a new form, this new appearance, is just relative emanation, relative manifestation of and totally interdependent existence. In particular, in this case, this is a divine manifestation, so it is a manifestation of compassion to the sentient being, wisdom, understanding the reality, and such kind of things, and the uncontaminated perfect state of bliss. And that coming together then produces a new appearance, a new form. But it's of not that same kind of creation of the delusion, but it's a total new creation. It is a manifestation of compassion to the sentient being. In order to help sentient beings, one has to appear. If one just only stays in an abstract state of emptiness, how can one help sentient? Nobody can see it. Nobody can have any contact to it. So therefore one has to appear. So therefore one has to manifest. So this manifestation of a perfect experience of the emptiness and also perfect bliss. At the same time, it is manifestation of your compassion and your wisdom in order to help sentient being. So that way this new form has appeared. So it is totally different from the karmic productions that we are obliged to have. So that's what is the profound, this clear appearance. There's the divine pride and clear appearance. Then it says, so without letting one's mind go astray, one place it in that state of profoundness and manifest. Profound is the emptiness, which one is fully experienced, and the experience is still maintained. But then there is the clear appearance also, which has of such material, such nature, as just mentioned before. With this kind of awareness, with this kind of maintenance of this kind of view, we should place our mind. Also, it says, your remembrance or mindfulness without forgetfulness should be placed into that state of profoundness and clearness is the same. So therefore we should maintain that state of, in one hand, aware of the emptiness. There is a total lack of this, all that false reality, all that false projection, and grasping to that false projection. That is all emptied. So that is, one has experienced that, one try to maintain that. At the same time, one is also aware of that new, absolutely pure, blissful and compassionate appearance. So in short, they all are always a union of compassion and wisdom, compassionate wisdom always. That way the essence of these deity are understood. That way also the appearance or the forms of the deities are understood. When we talk about everything looks quite simple, but actually what is happening, it is all in the moment, in imaginative state. Our real self is not there, easily gone away as we imagine. It's still there. Our karmic production, clumsy body is still there. Our clumsy mind is still there, and everything is still there. But for this moment, we pay no attention to that. We forget that completely, and then we, in our mental level, not yet in reality, but someday it will be only reality of ourselves. But at the moment, we are still in the old reality, which won't leave us so easily like that. So therefore, while living in it, we ignore it. We completely put it aside from our mind, and we think of the perfect new reality and try to maintain it as much as possible. So this kind of awareness, this kind of mindfulness, and this kind of placing our mind in such a state of clarity and profoundness, clarity and profoundness and manifest, that is the essential point of the deity yogas and such kind of stage of generation practice of the Tantra, which is all contained in this third verse. So that's also very important meditation. And then it says, now there is also mindfulness of emptiness. Throughout the cycle of appearing and occurring objects of knowledge pervades the space of clear light, which is reality, the ultimate and inexpressible mode of being of object is there. Forsaking mental fabrications, look to the essence of immaculate emptiness, not letting your mind stray, place it within reality, making your attention unforgetful, maintain it within reality. So what says here in Tibetan is, in the mandala of the phenomena which appears and which exist. That means that refers to the whole sphere of the phenomena. Mandala is like a sphere, or a whole sphere of the phenomena, which are phenomena that exist and that appears. It is the conventional truth. Conventional truth, all the existent phenomena including oneself. Whole sphere or whole range of the phenomena which are existent, which are appearing, is pervaded by that phenomena is totally pervaded by the ultimate reality. So in other words, simply speaking, the all conventional truth is pervaded by ultimate truth. In other words, all appearance or phenomena are pervaded by emptiness. Reality spreads over all the conventional. Wherever there is conventional truth, there is also ultimate truth. Conventional truth is the way of appearing, way how things appear. And ultimate truth is the way how they actually exist. So they cannot be separate. They are together. It applies to the same thing. So therefore we always say two truths are of one nature with two aspects. Certain names were given like clear light. in the whole range of or mandala of phenomena which are apparent and which are existing, then the space of clear light, of ultimate reality prevails. So this ultimate reality and also this clear light here and also the analogy of space, it all means the same thing. It all means the emptiness. It all means the shunyata. The space of the clear light of ultimate reality that cover or that pervades all the whole range of phenomena. This space and clear light and all these different terms, but it all refers to the emptiness. Clear light is here does not mean there's something like a light, anything like that. That's how it is. We also talk about clear light state of mind, which clearest state, which is the subtlest state of our mind, which manifests at the end of at the very end of the death and so on. It is also called clear light. Well, it has nothing to do with the light, but that's how it's called. That the final state of the death is called clear light state of the death or clear light state of our consciousness. It's also called clear light. In that state of the death also, it's called clear light state. Before that process, there are certain levels like after all our gross level of mind completely stops functioning, then comes the subtler mind such as mind of whitish light, reddish light, black out, unconscious, and so on. And then finally, when that's all gone, then comes the clear light. It doesn't have any implication of any light or any color. Before that, there is a whitish, reddish, black out, and so on. But in the clear light state, what is there is total empty experience. Not any kind of ideas, thoughts, forms, anything like that. It's just a bare, empty experience. Therefore, it's called clear light state. In the same way, the shunyata, the ultimate nature, is also clear light, which has nothing to do with the light. It simply, clear light means bare emptiness, in which there is not any kind of conventionality, any kind of form, color, shape, or anything like that. No, like conception, thought, mind, matter, anything like that. Totally devoid of any conventionality, just simply negation, simply an emptiness, and a negation of the false reality, that the false view, that false grasping, or that false mode of existence. Just simply total negation of that. That is the meaning of shunyata or emptiness. Therefore it's called also clear light. All the conventional phenomena, all that exists and appears and so on, like a great mandala of phenomena. And in all that, there is the emptiness. There's nothing that is not covered by emptiness. All are covered by the emptiness. So there's like an analogy of that on the level of our material things, like physical things, which are composed of their parts. That means the particles, such as the particles of the 5 elements. That means the particles of the 4 elements, such as earth, water, fire, and air. Also, it consists of space. That's also an element. There's also space. Altogether, these 5 elements are the nature of all these material phenomena. So, wherever there is matter or material, there is also space. So, if there's no space, there's no place for any of these particles actually to exist. Space is absolutely necessary, which gives the place. With all these material things, which is made of these particles, all the solid things, within it are also the space. Space element is part of that. If there's no space element in these things, there's no way for any particles, whatever, to exist, to position. That is analogy. That has nothing to do with this. Space is nothing to do with the emptiness we're talking about. This is only space, empty, the sphere, this empty sphere, devoid of any concrete material object. So that is also contained in all these objects. In a similar way, all the conventional reality that we have, all these appearances, wherever the conventional truth is also pervaded by the space of the clear light, the space of the ultimate truth, of the shunyata, the emptiness. There's no way to exist the two things separately. Here's the conventional truth and here's the emptiness. They must be always together. And all the mandala of the phenomena are pervaded by the space of clear light or ultimate reality. That means all objects are pervaded by shunyata. But here again one should not mix it with some external emptiness like space. Here, actually now everybody should know, but anyway it has been said repeatedly, here the emptiness or the selflessness, all these means the same thing, is not something other than that in each and every phenomena are completely lacking any kind of inherent from their independent, from their own side, independently, inherently existing. Even though usually out of our own ignorance we believe, we think that each and every phenomena exists in its own place, here's me and there are the others, and everything, inanimate, uninanimate, all objects are existing from their own side with some kind of their own nature, so-called own nature. That is how it believes to be, or how we believe to be existing, how it appears like that. But then when one really analyze, is there really something like that in all these objects, that some kind of their own nature that can be found, that can be traced, that one can, through some precise analysis, examination, we will kind of reach to the point. Somewhere within my body, somewhere then ultimately one finds something maybe very subtle or something like myself, the I, the self, the person, somewhere in here, even though maybe we think maybe it's not the body, maybe it's not the head or not the leg, but somewhere inside there should be the real self. Or that is all our imagination. There is no such things. On this base of myself, this person, then his base should be this and not that flower, so it should be this. And so here, if it exists, myself, my own nature, my inherent nature, if it should exist as it appears to me, also to the others, then is somewhere one should find it, even though one does not find it roughly, but in precisely ultimate analysis, one should find it. But when we don't apply precise analysis, it seems to exist obviously, very clearly, oh, it is there. But the moment we go deep and try to really find ultimately where is really that self, that me, then the more we approach it, the closer we get it, instead of it becoming clearer and clearer, it becomes less and less clear. So when we really reach the point, we don't see anything, even total any trace of it. All what we see is total lack of it. Because this is all a false reality that we have projected. There's nothing like that in the base, in the phenomena itself. In the ultimate search, in the unprecise search, conventional level search, we can find where I'm in Switzerland, or I'm in Rabten, Choeling, I'm in my room, etc. You can find it everywhere. You will definitely find it. But that is conventional searching, where you can also, sometimes you can find, sometimes you don't find. But don't find where you think it should be elsewhere. But the ultimate search is not that kind of search. Ultimate search, where is this actually? This person, this self, this I, on its base, that is one's body-mind complex, and on this, where is this now, this self, which seems to exist so obviously. That way, if one analyzes in it, dissecting every part, then that obvious self becomes less and less and less clear, instead of becoming clearer and clearer. And then when we reach to the conclusion of such search, then all what we find is the total lack of it. That is called selflessness, that is called the emptiness, the ultimate reality, because that is the reality what you ultimately find. Therefore it's called ultimate reality. That way one has to understand the meaning of the emptiness. So emptiness is emptiness of this kind of false reality which we just simply projected, which is not there, which was never there. Only we now recognize it's not something, it was there, and then in meantime We so much searched, so it got kind of annoyed, so it escaped. Nothing like that. It was never there, never ever there. Was never there, it will never be there either. But in between we think that something is there, which is our own projection, and then we think this is the truth, which is absolutely not the truth, this is the falsity. So that something which is false we take for the truth as truly existing, and then we grasp it, we believe it, and then we have all kinds of emotions and false attitudes built on that, like egoism and all that attachment, all the whole range of delusions are based on that grasping to of inherent, independent existing. Things existing with their own nature, from their own side. So this, the lack of that is what we should understand as emptiness and not some other phenomena. So because when we approach, when our analysis becomes closer and closer to the object, then it becomes less and less clear, and then at some point we don't find it at all. And to illustrate that, Buddha has given such examples like it is like the mirage, or it is like the rainbow and so on. Things like rainbow and mirage, from distance it's something really concrete, seem to exist. There's really like water where there's no water, or there are all these beautiful colors of 7 colors of the rainbow which seem to exist also there, quite in a concrete way, but only when we look them from distance. But if we want to really touch them, grab them or something, or drink the water there, or like that, if we approach it, then one will surely meet a great disappointment, because the closer we get, it becomes less and less clear. When we are on the spot, then there's nothing. In that way is the way how things seem to exist when we don't analyze each in their own place, but when we analyze, then we lose them ultimately. So in that way they are similar. So when one makes such precise analysis, and then as a result of that, one really finds that this I which seemed to exist, which I always believe that somewhere concrete as it appears also believed to be existing. And when one doesn't find it really, therefore for the true speakers at this point it gives also some kind of shock. So therefore, as I gave this account of this story, one great master even grabbed on his own robe, etc. Because our belief in such self-existence very, very strong, so therefore when suddenly one really realizes that there isn't anything like that, therefore it can give us a kind of a shock experience. So the reality is such that even if through such kind of ultimate analysis on the object, then that way one tries to find this kind of inherently, seemingly existing the self or whatever is no longer to find. So therefore it is also shocking, and this, the lack of this false reality or that kind of inherent existence, when that is directly understood, then it is a total bare emptiness. Something at this moment of realization, all our these conceptions, all these graspings whatsoever, all kind of dissolve, and one experience just negation of it, just total negation of the self and nothing else. So at that moment, when once really the analysis is done correctly, and that way one really come to the real correct conclusion. So that correct conclusion is that emptiness, which is totally, really, really empty, with leaving nothing in its place, any other trace. There's simply that total lack of the self. And that is this the total lack of the self, that is the emptiness here. It's also compared with the space. What is space? Space is just simply the lack of obstructive material objects. That total lack of that is called space.